What's going on, everyone? I'm Sean Herrera with Guaranteed Rate, mortgage lender in California. And one of the things I want to do in our state is explain that, yes, it's a competitive market. It's hard to get offers accepted in the Bay Area, especially, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. And there's a lot of agents, well, not a lot of agents, but agents I've seen that have very unique ways of approaching an offer situation that lead to far more acceptance. As a lender, I get to work with a lot of different agents, get to see a lot of different styles, and ultimately I get to choose who I want to partner with. And I wanted to introduce Robert Parker today from Compass Real Estate in Oakland. Robert and I have been working together for a couple years, and I just love what he's doing. So Robert, thanks for being here today.
Hey, thanks, Sean. I appreciate it, man. It's fun to be here.
Right on. So yeah, just I don't want to explain it, but you do have a unique way of creating and guiding your clients through the offer process. Can you just give us a little bit of a background of how that works?
Yeah, I mean, first off, it's all about setting expectations. I think that a lot of people going into the market really, they have an idea of what it's all about. They see that the list price and then they see the sales price and they're like, oh, it's going 20 or 30% over the market value, which is not the case. The list price is really not a direct correlation of what the home's value is. So it's setting the expectation of what the strategy is that listing agents and their sellers are using. Once you kind of go through the educational process of just the market and kind of narrowing down some neighborhoods based on the median price range, then it goes into what to be expected with condition, as well as just the overall what to be expected the moment that you want to write an offer. So that goes into the education of what a disclosure packet is and what documents are within those within those disclosure packets. And then it goes all the way down to the moment that you're signing on the dotted line. You got the residential purchase agreement all signed, and we come up with a couple different strategies with the purchase agreement that makes us successful for when we're in negotiations.
And so that's really important. So basically, you just walked us through really briefly everything that goes into. It's not just, hey, Robert, I want to make an offer, and it's okay, great, let's make an offer. There's a lot of due diligence and education you're doing to ensure that even though it's pretty online and you loved it when you walked through it, is this really the right house? Let's do some due diligence before we get to that stage.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, there's people that will approach me and say, "Hey, Robert, I'm super interested in this property. I found you on Zillow. I want to write an offer tomorrow." And it's literally like, no, I'm not going to do that, because at the end of the day, I don't know you. I don't know what makes you tick. I don't understand where your pain threshold is and how to advise you from a fiduciary level. So in most cases, I'm like, look, if you want, the one-off agent, I'm just not your guy, because at the end of the day, the initial steps of this entire process is really the most important, so that in the moment that you are negotiating and going into, an offer scenario, you have so much education behind you, because we really sit down and go through it with a fine-tooth comb. So,
and I think that's one of the reasons you and I partner so well is you're going to have so much detail and transparency that all the variables are pretty much eliminated before we go into the offer, right?
Okay.
And I think, so the one variable, and this is kind of a perfect segue, the one variable is, and to your point, especially in, I'd say, Berkeley, Oakland, Albany, surrounding area, the list strategy is really, let's list really low, unrealistically low, knowing that the list price is not the ask price. This is what we're going to list at to get a bunch of offers that we can then choose from. And I think a lot of places do that, but your market is definitely takes it to another level.
Definitely does. And it just comes down to that. I mean, every listing agent is different. That's the other thing too, is that you can't stick to this rule of thumb, 20 or 30% over the list price, because it really is, I mean, you would think it's objective, this list price, but it's really not. It's subjectively from the listing agent's point of view, what they've experienced, things that worked with them in the past with other clients, and as well as kind of like the data that comes through, as well as the listing agent understands the conditions. So in some respects, you can get a similar house that's turnkey listed at $699. We all know it's going to sell, close to $1 million. Whereas you take that same home that has $200,000 worth of work, it's going to be listed at $499. So you're not going to list it at the same price.
And I think that's a perfect segue into kind of your strategy for going into an offer. I think a lot of agents could go, okay, it's listed for $1 million. We're going to offer $1,250,000. We're going to offer $1,300,000. Typically it's, 25 to 30% over the list price. So let's just do that. You don't do that. I think once you've gone through your process, made sure it's the right home. Now the only variable is price, right? And ultimately we truly don't really know, but you have a different approach, and where you'll come to me and say, Sean, we're ready to make an offer. I need pre-approval letters at these different price levels. Walk us through why you started doing that and how it works.
So one of the things that I've always noticed when in negotiations early on in my career is that, we'd always prepare a solo number, and it was always, okay, so at this point, we don't know how many offers are going to come to the table, because in our market, you can have 40 or 50 people really interested, but only maybe one offer comes in for some whatever reason, right? Maybe there's some variables involved. So if you only have that one number and you don't want to, go that 20, 30% over the list price, go like 5 or 10% over, you have to do this scramble drill where, when you get the real life information from the listing agent saying, hey, Robert, we only have one offer. And I'm like, oh crap, like we're doing 20 or 30% over asking. Why would we do that? So
Right.
At that point, I was like, okay, we're going to come up with a couple of scenarios here. So, and it all is, depending on a few factors, one of which is how many offers are on the table. And then two is, my dialogue with the listing agent, the real data that I get to, then pass on to my clients, where they, at the end of the day, get to make the final decision. And what I think that really does is that it provides a lot of confidence that we have multiple options that we can at any point, put in right at the deadline.
So how do you arrive at those numbers? So you're talking to your client. Let's just use $1 million price because it's a round number. So $1 million list price. You're talking to your client. How do those options that you come to me with? Typically, it's 4 or 5 price points that you want from low to high. How do you guys arrive at those numbers?
Well, I do a CMA, which is a comparative market analysis that kind of establish fair market value. And in most cases, I've toured a lot of these homes. So basically, when I've toured these homes and I have an understanding of condition of the homes that have sold in the last 6 months, I can at least give you kind of a low, medium, and high range for the particular property. And, at any point within the last 6 months, you can have some, market conditions that has been variable, and I can speak on those. And at the end of the day, I just take that low, medium, high range based on the data. I give them obviously the option of saying, look, if it goes really competitive, understand that it's probably going to go in this, medium to higher range. And are you prepared to go over what is kind of perceived on the data as fair market value? And in most cases, because I've gone through with them that we're in an appreciating market, that they are prepared to do that, because I set realistic expectations right from the get-go. So that's the way that I has established a low, medium, and high, is just with the information that I have in hand. And the start price, which is the list price, is, I would say, the bare minimum, right, that someone would want to, maybe, write an offer at.
Got it. So it's really buyer. Here's data. Here's to show you low, medium, high of the market. Now a home
for that particular home.
For that particular home. Now, what's your comfort level, right? So a home is worth what somebody's willing to buy and sell for. So the data we're looking back at for fair market value is based on previous sales, but ultimately, what is this home worth to you is kind of part of the conversation, at least that I talk to them about too. So I think one of the next steps after you guys have identified, here's our price points, this is our strategy. Of course, the next question is, at each price point, what's my cost going to be? How do things change for me from a financial side? So I think you guys have arrived at the comfort zone, right? These are the 4 prices. This is my range. And then they call me. And the question is, Sean, what does this look like? If I start at my lowest price and I have to bump up 1, 2, or to the highest price range, what are my differences? So I wanted to show people really quickly what we use to educate them. And again, goal being, you make your offer. You're not worried about the money. You're not worried about the price. Now we just got to get the house. And so I just wanted to share real quick, a quick one that we actually just recently used for a client. I changed the name. This is now your analysis, Robert Parker. But basically, this is what I present after a client speaks with Robert. They identify their price points. We're preparing to make an offer. I show them what things look like. And at that point, what are the two main pieces? What is my monthly payment going to be? And how much am I coming out of pocket? So for this particular client, he kind of said, I want 225,000 down regardless of price. So ultimately with that, it's even easier. What we're showing him is difference in monthly payment. And so he can quickly look at this chart here on the right and see, okay, if I bump from 675 down to, I'm sorry, I'm going backwards. If my highest is 675, if I start at 625 and I have to go all the way to 675, I know that my payment's going to be about $300 more a month. And he can kind of compare in between each one to get a solid understanding of what he's looking at. And if he doesn't care about how much does each price point change, we can just look here on the right-hand side and see what the corresponding payment, including taxes and insurance, and if there was an HOA fee, we would build that in as well. But we're showing them exactly what everything's going to look like. So when it comes to making an offer, the way that Robert works has really eliminated a lot of guesswork, right? I as a buyer have chosen my range of price, and I've gone to my lender, and he's now shown me exactly what things look like. I know exactly how much cash close I'm going to bring in. I know exactly what my monthly payment's going to be. I can go into this offer situation very confident with my decision. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about when we, like the last one we just had, we had this range identified, and when we went above and beyond. So walk me through that a little bit. When we have this range, and ultimately I'm willing to bump higher because it's the right house, and maybe we started off conservative and it ended up being more competitive than we thought. So how does that work?
I mean, in this particular case with this particular client, we identified our high at 675. I told them ultimately, the possibility of it going 700 is pretty likely if there is more than 10 offers. And he understood that and still wanted to kind of have his high at 675. And the thing that you can never anticipate, and this is this client's first offer. So take into consideration the fact that he's never had any experience with this. What happened was we had to kind of play a little bit of a scramble the moment that we heard back from the listing agent that our offer was in the mid-tier range at 675. So at that point, Sean, you had to quickly pull over in your van and come up with an analysis of what things looked at an offer above 700, 705 to be exact. So, having the ability to have your lender quickly have those numbers for you is key, as well as an agent who can then quickly regroup, come with a new offer price, and give that and deliver that to the listing agent.
No, and that's perfect. I think, and again, everything is comfort. You don't want to, everybody knows what buyer's remorse feels like. And I think your process really eliminates that almost entirely, because we're going into so much data to make sure you understand the value and the price and everything that builds into it to make sure you're making the right decision. But one thing you're touching on, you said if it has more than 10 offers, that the agent said if we're going to be at this range. I think what a lot of people think is an agent emails an offer and then they just kind of wait to hear back. Obviously, that's not the case if you're getting that type of feedback. So once the offer is presented, I mean, what is the game like? You're going back and forth quite a bit, it sounds like.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of dialogue that happens, and dialogue is good in this case. If you have an agent on the other side who, is either very well connected in the community, I mean, you better know them. So one of the things that I really do and work hard into establishing is understanding the community that I do business in. And, a lot of these are my colleagues. So I don't view them as competitors. I view them as colleagues and friends. We collaborate together. We share ideas together. I'm very open with all my trade secrets, if you want to call them that. And what that allows to happen is, in these scenarios where I need them to kind of give me some more information, or at least have their client and talk to their client, say, hey, look, I know Robert, I trust Robert. He said that, this particular client's pre-approved the X and has a little bit more money down, that at the end of the day, they're going to get the deal closed. I know who the lender is. All this rapport is super important during the negotiations. And so that initial dialogue is super important to get some sort of sense, some sort of data that would suggest that we either are in the running or we're below the price. So that's what it comes down to, is that the rapport building and the dialogue. So during the negotiations, and it depends, right? Some agents are willing to give you as much as others. So it really depends.
Yeah, and that's all we can do is ask. There's no harm in asking. The worst thing that is they say no or they don't say anything at all. But
That's right.
at least you're asking, right? You're doing
I
your
am.
due diligence throughout, upfront and throughout the process to really advocate for your client. And I honestly believe that's why you have such a high success rate with getting offers accepted. Uh,
Yeah.
it
Thank you.
stands out. It really does. So that's, I mean, thank you for your time. This has been awesome. Is there
Yeah.
anything we should add or we missed?
Thinking about that right now, I think we really hit all the talking points that I essentially do. I mean, the most important thing really is just to be prepared. Be prepared, be educated, have a lot of trust in your agent, because your agent's going to be essentially calling you to do some uncomfortable things. And to make that less uncomfortable is to really like sit down, go through the entire process, know what is to be expected in the market and of yourself. So,
Perfect. Robert, thanks again, man. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I think it's super helpful for anyone who's, maybe they're too scared they want to buy a home. They think they want to buy a home, but they're just scared to reach out. And they've heard all the horror stories of, oh, it's going to go 30% over and it's cash only and all these things that really aren't true. I think
yeah.
maybe this helps them to kind of go, oh, maybe I should step in and try and find out a little bit more information. So thanks again for taking the time.
Yeah, my pleasure, Sean. Anytime, man.
All right, man. If any of you guys have questions, Robert and I are always available to answer anything. If you have questions about basically the East Bay, Oakland, Berkeley, Albany, Alameda, Richmond, any of that area, Robert is a complete expert. Any financing questions, reach out to me anytime. We're happy to be resources. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll catch up with you soon. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
All right.